So now that Sony has just announced the Sony ZV1 Mark II, is it worth buying this, the Sony ZV1 Mark I in 2023? Keep watching to find out. Hey there, welcome to the video. So as we mentioned in the intro, Sony just announced the Sony ZV1 Mark II as soon as we hit that record button. So the question that we're asking in this video, is it worth buying the Sony ZV1 Mark I in 2023? Now bearing in mind, because there's a lot of these on the market, you can actually pick these up for as little as £300. So in this video, I'm going to cover the pros and the cons and show you a ton of footage. So let's start with the positives. Okay, number one has got to be its size and portability. I love this camera for its size, and it's exactly the same size as the Sony ZV1 Mark II as well. But just look at that, it's actually smaller than an iPhone. But unlike an iPhone, you're not going to get overly sharpened footage that you can just tell is smartphone footage. This gives you an image quality which I would say is not quite up to like a Sony a7S III, but it certainly matches a lot better than phone footage. You get better depth of field, you can control your shutter speeds, and you just get a nice pocketable camera. This is why I like this camera over even something like the Sony ZV-E10, because that one, you know, it has interchangeable lenses, but you can't just stick it in a pocket when you're around on your travels. And it has a built-in microphone too. So it's everything you need for your travels. Okay, so number two is the autofocus. And honestly, even in 2023, this has some of the best autofocus, I think, on any camera, including up to the Sony a7S III. I think this is somehow just a little bit better. And for, as I say, £300, £300 to £400 secondhand, I don't think you'd be able to pick up any other camera with autofocus this good. So, you know, if you are looking to start your first YouTube channel or you need a B cam and autofocus is important to you, really bear that in mind. Now, talking of focus and focal lengths, there's an aspect of this camera that I don't see a lot of other YouTubers mention, and that's its built-in macro mode. It really is good if you want to record close-up details. So if you're doing product shots, maybe you're doing a bit of nature photography or video, this can come in super handy. So check out these shots from Cornwall. Number three is the versatile lens and image quality coming out of this camera. Now this is a 24 to 70mm camera, and you can really get some nice shots with this. And I like that, you know, when you're on your travels, you can just fold down this lens and it's as compact as that. With any other camera, to get that range, you would need to unscrew and put a new lens on. It means you've got to then take a bag with you with your camera and a couple of lenses with you. So it really is quite versatile. You can be wide enough to vlog, and you can zoom in if you want to get some distant kind of videos of buildings or friends who are off into the distance. So it's really great for that. Another great thing about this camera is that you can get these nice blurry cinematic backgrounds because of the f1.8 aperture. It's probably going to overexpose a little bit now because the ND filter on the camera isn't that great, but a little bit of shade, look how good that looks. So what is the range of this lens? Let's take a look at these shots here of the pier in St. Ives, and we're going to start here all the way zoomed out, and now let's zoom into the end of the pier. And you can see that's actually pretty impressive. This level of zoom in a compact camera is great to have. Number four is a microphone input. Now, a lot of people overlook this, but if you want to get great quality audio when you're doing your vlogs or doing your videos, you will really need a microphone input. Now, the ZV1 actually has a built-in microphone on the top here, which is actually really good. So if you want to go around on your travels and the audio isn't super important for you, you can get away with just having this little dead cat on here, and this will be good enough for your vlogs. It makes it much more compact. But if you are going somewhere and you do want to get good quality audio, you can simply slide any microphone onto the hot shoe here, just like this, plug it into the side of the camera, and now you'll be getting some studio quality audio, just like you can from a camera like the Sony a7S III. And again, for this price, this is a hard feature to beat on some cameras. Okay, so now let's talk about some negatives, and there are a few on this camera. And the first one is with the lens, or the fact that you can't actually change the lens on the camera. So, as I mentioned, it's quite good, it's quite versatile, it's 24-70, that gives you a nice range. But if you want to get really wide while you're vlogging, or you really want to zoom in, you can't. You're stuck with this for life, or the life of the camera. You can't unscrew this like you can with any other Sony full frame camera or any APS-C camera as well. So if you wanted to stick on a lens like this, which is also a 24-70, you wouldn't be able to do this with the Sony ZV1. But again, just going back to a Pro, this is a 24-70 and this is a 24-70. So just look at the difference there. Again, a little Pro, but this is one of the reasons why I like the ZV1, because it does have a really versatile lens built in. But again, the negative, you can't change this once you've got the camera. Okay, number 2 is battery life. Now the ZV1 takes these little tiny batteries here, which is good for the weight of the camera, but it's pretty bad when you want to shoot more than about 30 minutes. That's right, the ZV1 can only film for around about 25 minutes in 4K, which is a real shame because it does mean you will definitely need to carry some more batteries with you, and you will have to swap out your batteries. And also if you're maybe filming an event, or maybe you want to film a friend's wedding or something, you're not going to be able to really do this on a single battery with the ZV1. Now again, just being positive, the pro is that these batteries are incredibly small. So you can buy these on Amazon. They really don't cost a lot. 2 extra batteries and a charger cost me £15 here in the UK. So really, you can just take a couple of more batteries with you, chuck them in your bag. They're not going to add much to the weight, but it's just something to think about. Okay, another negative of the ZV1 is the built-in stabilization. Now, to its credit, it does have stabilization built in, but it's pretty poor, it's pretty shaky. If you have stabilization turned off completely, it's almost unusable if you have any kind of movement. If you have it on standard, it's a little better, but it's still really shaky. It doesn't look too bad on the screen, but when you get it back into your Mac or PC to edit, you'll notice these little micro jitters that just are very annoying. So I would recommend using a gimbal. Now, I can hear some of you saying it does have active stabilization, and that's true, but active stabilization has a mighty crop on it. So when you turn active stabilization on, it crops in so much, it's really hard to do any kind of vlogging. And then the other negative of active stabilization is that it adds these kind of weird micro jitters. So if you're filming around any kind of lights or you're walking, you'll notice every element in your video has this kind of weird jittery effect. Now, there is a way around that I found, and you can change your shutter speed. Instead of being 1/50 for regular 25 frames a second, change your shutter speed to 1/200, and that will fix the issue. You'll find that you get rid of those micro jitters. But of course, you're breaking that 180-degree rule. Okay, after watching all of that footage, what do you think of the quality of the ZV1? Leave your comment below and let me know. But what is my final verdict of the ZV1? Well, I've got to be honest, I actually do really like this camera. And I think for the price tag that you can pick these up for now, especially used, it's almost worth having as a B camera, maybe as a small travel camera, or if you're getting into YouTube for the first time and you don't have a big budget, I think you'd be hard pressed to spend £400 or less and get a better camera than this with everything in it. You could get maybe a body of a APS-C camera or something like that, but you would then need to go and buy a lens. So that's going to add more money to the cost of things. You may need to add a microphone, which you don't necessarily need to do straight away with this camera. So I think for £300, £400 with stabilization, with the autofocus, with the microphones, I think it's a great buy. Now, if you have a bit of a bigger budget, maybe say you can go between £400 to £1,000, yeah, you might consider the Sony ZV-E10 or maybe some other APS-C style cameras. That way you can change the lenses can grow with you. So you may want to look at that. But even with the ZV-E10, I think the stabilization on that camera is pretty bad and actually worse than this one. So I think you need to have a think about what you're going to be using your camera for and how often you're going to be using it for. But really, it all comes down to your preference. Look at that footage. What do you think? Is that good enough for you, or is it not good enough for you? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe to the channel because we just might get in the ZV1 II for a full review.